Hi, I'm Danielle Gallant with Guardian Realty, and we are about to have to deal with AB121. It will be going into effect October 1st, and it is one of the most poorly written bills and laws that I have seen since I've been in Nevada. So essentially, and it's very confusing. I literally been talking about this with attorneys for the last 4 months. And essentially the response is, every time I read this, I'm more confused than when I had read it the previous time. So this is what we have distilled this down to, and then proof will be in the pudding when we have to go, or anybody has to go before the courts and see how they rule on this particular legislation. So essentially this bill is saying you need to provide some way of being able to pay rent without a fee and without any accounting, banking information. I don't know how they're going to be able to do this, or how any of us are going to be able to do this, because when you pay online, there's always a fee. So now they've said, the property managers just can't do an additional fee. You have to charge at cost. Fine. But in order to pay online, you have to put in banking information. In order to pay by check, you have your accounting information. Now, the authors of the bill say the check is fine. Money orders are the only thing that you can do without any banking information, but that still costs the tenant money and it has nothing to do with me because they buy it from a third party. The only way to do this is cash, and property managers have moved away from cash because it is dangerous. Criminals know that you collect rent between the 1st and the 5th, and if I have property managers walking around with a lot of cash, it puts them in danger. Plus, on top of it, my bank is mostly virtual. They do have brick and mortar, but more and more banks are moving away from that. And so I don't really have an easy way to deposit cash. So we stopped taking cash during COVID and have continued with that policy. The other portion of the bill talks about having to make sure that all periodic charges are lumped into one amount on the lease agreement. I've actually been doing this for years because I think it reduces confusion with tenants, but it does increase confusion with owners because they think they're supposed to be getting, say, $2,050 a month, but it's really $2,000 in rent, and then there's maybe $50 in utility fees. And so having to explain that to them from time to time is a little bit of a heavier lift, but I do think it's easier for tenants if you have the whole lump sum. Now, what gets tricky is, and I don't do this, but for other property managers who actually they carry the bill for maybe water and power or electric or gas or something like that. And then every month they submit a bill to the tenant saying, hey, this is the amount that you owe for your utilities. This bill's saying they can't do that. And so I know a lot of property managers, and mostly the multifamily, are really struggling on how they're going to be able to follow the law, but also not end up holding the bag with utility charges. The other part of this bill talks about situations and criteria in which a property manager must return the application fee. So we can still charge what we, deem reasonable. However, if we don't rent them the property and we don't run the application, we have to return the security deposit. I already do that. I don't believe in taking people's money for no reason, but I do know that there's been some bad actors in the past that, just like to make money on the application fee and not actually run the application. So I have updated our lease to outline the online charges if you want to pay online through our portal. I've also included language that says, hey, this is subject to change. It's outside of me. It's a third party. We'll see if it ever gets challenged in court and how the courts decide that they are going to rule on this particular legislation. So it's always interesting and ever changing in property management. And I'm sure my clients are very lucky to have somebody at the helm watching these so that we make sure we stay compliant. If you have questions or would like to discuss this further, please feel free to reach out to me at the information below. My name's Danielle Gallant, and I'm with Guardian Realty. Thanks.